I mean, it has to be congruent. And I think that's what Disney does so well, is that everything is themed. So if you are in a high-end restaurant, the servers and the cast members are all going to be dressed appropriately to serve a high-end meal.
Hello and welcome to the Service-Based Business Society podcast. I am your host, Tiffany-Ann Bottcher. If you are ready to scale your success, grow your business, and live that entrepreneurial life, click subscribe because we're about to get started. Welcome back to another episode. If you've ever been to Disney, you've experienced the magic, the kind of customer service that makes everything feel seamless, special, and unforgettable. But what if I told you that your business, no matter the size or industry, can create that same kind of customer experience? Today, I'm sitting down with Vance Morris, a former Disney leader turned customer experience expert, to unpack the real secrets behind Disney's legendary service. We're diving into how small businesses can create world-class experiences, charge premium prices, and turn customers into raving fans. From turning mundane tasks into magical moments to the power of systems and processes, this episode is packed full of high-impact strategies you can implement today. If you're ready to Disneyify your business and unlock next-level success, this is an episode that you cannot afford to miss. Welcome to the show, Vance.
I appreciate it, Tiffany-Ann. This will be fun.
You know, it's interesting because if anyone's been listening to the podcast for a really long time, they know we have talked about Disney way, way long ago, but we did not have the Disney service expert. So when this opportunity came up, I was super excited about it because if anyone has been to Disney, they've experienced the magic that is the Disney customer service and the Disney customer experience, the service delivery, all of that. And I think it's so important for any business. Yesterday, I was actually doing an interview with someone else. And they were asking me questions about my business. And they said, what do you think is the difference maker? If someone wants to start a business and they're thinking, hey, is there room in the space? And my answer wholeheartedly was, I think that if you can change the game, if you can offer the top customer experience, that there's room for anyone, that there is no business out there that there's too many of, because I think that anyone can do it better than someone who's already doing it. And so, and I think that that's Disney right there.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, we live in a very commoditized world. I mean, you're absolutely right. And there's nothing that separates businesses from each other except for the experience that's provided. I mean, a dentist is a dentist is a dentist. I mean, there's only so many ways to clean teeth. They either get the little brushy thing or the squirty thing, and that's kind of it. So, I mean, what's the only difference that can be made is that in-office experience, or do they create some kind of theme out of the dentist office? I had a client who was actually a dental client, and she decided that she was going to only be a pediatric dentist, which was smart. She niched down, but she took it even further, and we found out her favorite movie was Peter Pan, and she was going to be the pirate dentist. And so when you niche and when you create experiences, you also get what's called price elasticity. You get to charge premium prices for these incredible experiences. So back to our dentist, she dressed up as Captain Hook every day. The cleaning, what do they call them? The cleaning technicians or dental hygienists, whatever, all dressed as Mr. Smee. They walk around the office all saying "arg," and the kids love going there. I mean, when was the last time your kid wanted to go to the dentist? I mean, usually I don't even want to go to the dentist. And, usually they're dragging and screaming and crying. They don't want to go, but people just line up to go to her place.
That's amazing. And that really is the ultimate piece of when someone wants to go somewhere where they wouldn't normally go, or when people will happily spend significantly more money. And so I'm in the planning stages of my own Disney World trip for my daughter's upcoming cheer competition. And so I've been, joining the Facebook groups. We've been to Disneyland a couple times, had never been to Disney World. I had no idea that there was so much research and planning required to do Disney World effectively. And so I feel like I've been immersed. Now my social media feed, all it shows me is all the Disney things. And over again, you see people talking about the amazing cast members and the customer experience and the fact that, maybe someone had a medical emergency when they were there and they, oh my gosh, my kid fell and split their head open. But can you believe that it actually turned out to be a totally fine experience because, and it's all of these pieces where it's over and over again, it is this examples of well done customer experience. We have a party shop nearby in town, and they're going out of business. And so my daughter and I went in there recently. We were getting some birthday decor. My daughter's 12. She says things often that, without a filter. And we walk out of the store and she says, Mom, perhaps if there was better customer service, they wouldn't be going out of business. And I thought, out of the mouths of babes, because 100%, I was like, yep, that really summarizes it. She's like, they've got cool stuff, but man, here she is at 12 and has identified that, hey, great product, terrible service.
Yeah, they have to be matched up. Otherwise, you're incongruent. I hosted my mastermind group at this kind of historic inn in Annapolis, Maryland, right across from the Naval Academy. Beautiful place. But there were some things that were out of place in the rooms. I don't have it close to me, but in the bathroom, they had plastic water cups. And on the plastic water cups, it was emblazoned luxury division of whatever hotel. And I'm like, Holiday Inn gives us real glass. And do you have to tell us it's luxury on a plastic cup? So you have to have that congruency all through your business. If you're going to have lobster thermidor and it's a $200 meal, well, the guy who's serving it probably shouldn't be in, jean cutoffs and a tank top shirt. It has to be congruent. And I think that's what Disney does so well, is that everything is themed. So you're not going to, so if you are in a high-end restaurant, the servers and the cast members are all going to be dressed appropriately to serve a high-end meal. And if you go to Casey's Corner in the Magic Kingdom where they serve hot dogs, well, they look like they should be serving hot dogs. So everything is congruent. And I think that's really important. And I want to go back to what you said at the beginning, with things with accidents and things that happen like that. A lot of times with businesses, we can actually make a situation better or make an experience better than if a problem never happened.
Mm-hmm.
Make it even more memorable. My daughter, when she was younger, we were at Disney. And of course, we told her to, we're going to be walking all day. She has this new pair of sneakers. We said, wear socks. Oh, no. Mom and Dad don't know squat. Socks are not cool. I'm not wearing socks. I kid you not. We weren't in those shoes 30 minutes and she's got blisters. So we go over to the little first aid station to get some You can't buy Band-Aids, but you can go to first aid station and get them. So we're in there. We're sitting there with the guy and he's like, well, how'd you get these? He goes, well, they're new shoes. Mom said to wear socks, but I didn't. And now, while we were getting Band-Aids put on, somebody else from the medical center went over to one of the merchandise stores, got a 3-pack of socks, came over and asked my daughter, well, which one of these would you like? And my daughter, oh, yeah, okay, the frozen socks are kind of nice. So she put the frozen socks on. And I'm like, all right, what do I owe you? And he goes, oh, don't worry about it. And he gave us the other 2 pairs of socks to go.
Amazing.
Now, what did it cost Disney to do that? The socks are made in China. It's probably 50 cents, 75 cents worth of fabric. That gesture
mm-hmm.
has so much meaning. Again, it has congruency with Disney's level of service. But now I have a story to tell others. It wasn't just we went on the rides, we had some nice meals, we took some great pictures. Now I got a story to tell that, oh my God, they went above and beyond. We got Band-Aids and they, gave us free socks. It's
totally.
You get a story. Your business becomes tellable.
And I think that we often focus on things never going wrong in business, that, we don't ever want mistakes to happen. And I was actually on a sales call a couple of years ago, and I still remember what the prospective vendor said. And he said, I'm not going to tell you we won't make mistakes. I guarantee at, this scale we will. But I will say that our team will do absolutely everything we can to make it right every time. And it was like, okay, I appreciate the honesty, because those that say a mistake will never happen, it feels insincere.
You're dealing with humans. Mistakes are unavoidable. It's how you react to it. Certainly with a mistake in business or, when you're serving people, what you want to do and what you need to do is cut down the amount of time between the mistake and the resolution to the mistake. The longer the period of time, the worse it's going to get and the more it's going to cost you to fix it. So if you got a burnt steak at the restaurant and the server can run back there and immediately get another steak and bring it out, and then it was only a few minutes time, and maybe he brought a salad or something to serve you in between, that's probably all it's going to cost the restaurant. But boy, if you got a burnt steak and then, the server argued, well, you wanted it well done. And, but no, I didn't. I said medium rare. And you get into an argument and then you stretch it out. And then, well, I got to get my manager to come over, and the manager gets in. Now it's straight. I mean, now it's a period of time has elapsed. And instead of just having to maybe comp the guy's dinner, or maybe you didn't even have to do that, maybe you just got him a new steak. Now you're comping his whole dinner. Maybe you have to comp the entire table's dinner. Maybe you're inviting him back for another time. The compensation piles up. So I mean, it's just like a wound. I mean, if you cut your finger and you put a little ointment on it and a Band-Aid, well, it's going to get better in a day or two. But if you cut your finger and you rub a little dirt in it and then you don't do anything, well, it's going to get infected, and then it's going to get gangrene, and then sooner or later they're going to amputate. It's the same thing with a problem. I mean, it's just, you can't let time go by, because the problem is only going to get worse.
Yes. So one of the things that I find so unique about the Disney piece from a business perspective, so forget the fact that as a customer, it's amazing. But from a business perspective, one of the things in every business that's so challenging is hiring people and then sending them out into the world and hoping that even when no one is paying attention, that they're doing the right thing. And obviously, we hire the best we can. Obviously, we do a great, you go through a vetting process, and, you got a good feeling or you don't have a good feeling. But nobody really hires anyone that they think is not going to do a great job. So everyone who's ever been hired is with the hope and intention that it will be a great job. But Disney does that I don't know how many people work there, but hundreds, thousand, I don't know, lots. And overall, the consensus is that those people are doing a great job when someone's paying attention, when someone's not paying attention. How at that large a scale is that done?
It ain't easy. I mean, in Orlando, depending on the season, there's probably 75 to 80,000 employees just in the Orlando Disney World. One of the things they look for is attitude. It's primarily, they work with Gallup, or the Gallup organization. So there is a lot of testing done to see if they are service oriented, to see if they have what they call a heart for service. Because myself included, we are of the firm belief we can teach you to do any job. We can teach you to carry a tray in a restaurant. We can teach you to drive a bus. We can't teach you to be nice, right? We can't teach you to truly, sincerely want to help somebody. I mean, we can coach you a little on that, but that's something that you have to bring with you. So certainly through those assessments, we're looking for that. Then obviously in the interview, we're asking more questions about personality, about how they would handle situations than we are, can you tell the difference between a glass of Chablis and a glass of Chardonnay? So we want to address that first. And then really looking at I almost lost my train of thought there. Sorry. I did lose my train of thought completely. That happens.
It does.
Early
it happens
onset Alzheimer's sometimes kicks in. But hiring for the attitude is paramount, because, again, we can just train people to do anything. And I think and Disney knows that, though, that they have a right fit for the right person. So they might be a great person, but not very personable. So maybe like third shift custodial might be a good place for them. The park is completely empty. They don't have to talk to anybody. They just have to clean. So there's a place for everybody. And just through those tests, through those assessments and the interview, they can certainly place people where they think they would be best.
Right. Yeah, it's interesting. And almost being that bigger size with more options makes it almost easier to find the right person. Because for a smaller organization, that person who is a great person, but maybe doesn't want to talk to anybody, maybe there isn't a night shift, maybe there isn't a good fit. And so then it almost, as much as it on one side makes it more challenging to do it at scale with more people, there's also more opportunities. So interesting to kind of a yin and yang of every situation.
I have the other part of my business is, in addition to being a coach and consultant, I have three. I own three home service businesses here in Maryland, and one part of the interview process is that they do a ride along with one of my technicians out in the field. My belief is that after about 30 or 45 minutes in the van with them, they forget that they're on an interview and they start to freely talk about anything and everything. And they don't realize that my employee is going to come back and report to me about everything that he said, everything that he did. I mean, most of the time it's good. And they'll say, yeah, he chipped in, he carried this and he helped there. And, he told me about his family and everything. But every once in a while, he'll say, well, okay, well, how can I make a little extra money on the side while I'm doing this job? And, so some red flags start going up. But, the more you can do before, and that's an investment on my part because I pay for that, for him to ride along for that day. But so it's an investment for me, but I would rather invest 6 hours of pay, but know then that they're going to be a lousy employee rather than hire them, begin the training, and be a week or 2 weeks or 2 months later and have to terminate them. And now I've blown 2 months worth of salary and I got to go rehire somebody and start the process over again. So whatever you can do before the hire and before the job offer to really get to know that person, it's a worthwhile investment.
It's interesting when you say, they kind of forget that they're being interviewed 100%. And I think that people often, they show up and they put their best foot forward for the interview and that the things that are said are calculated and, they've thought ahead and planned. And so kind of taking them out of that environment to say, hey, this is a more natural environment. You've spent, if they're in the, home service business, they're out kind of in their environment. Now they're out on the road in the van, off they go chatting with, what is seemingly a buddy at this point. And so to kind of really get that more authentic view versus that, I showed up in my Sunday best, ready to say just the right thing.
Exactly. And my guys love it because they have to work with them. So they want to know all about this guy or gal because sooner or later they're going to be working side by side with them and they don't want to be working with a sloucher.
And I think that can really negatively affect company culture in two ways. Number one, when you hire and it's the wrong person all the time, especially if you're in a high volume situation, people are like, oh yeah, we really need to hire another team member. Maybe they've been working some extra hours. They're like carrying the weight, oh great, we have this new person. And that new person shows up on day one, they jump in the van for training. And within, half an hour, that person is like, oh man, is this who's supposed to be helping us? This is the help? Oh, no, this is never going to work. And it almost, instead of being like, oh, thank goodness the help has arrived, instead it's like, oh, this is terrible. And they know that now they're going to battle this for a while. It's not going to work out. They're going to have to start the process all over again. It negatively affects the culture more so than had you just never hired in the first place and that person just kept doing extra work.
Yeah, you have to protect your culture. You have to protect your brand really almost at all costs because one sour apple or rotten apple in the mix. And, I mean, we all make mistakes. I mean, I've hired a couple of people that ended up being subpar and, we lost a few customers because of it. But, there's a saying, hire slow and fire fast. And I am of the firm proponent of that.
Yeah, it's interesting. And I think that a lot of people in business would say, oh, yeah, I agree. And there's a few things in business I've really noticed over the last few years. People talk about business boundaries and they talk about letting bad apples go and all with this kind of like emphatic passion of like, yeah, I believe in this. But then when it comes actually time to deliver on those kinds of things, the bad apples stay a little longer than they should, or, you want to give them the benefit of the doubt. And I get it. I totally get the wanting to do those things. But at the, I did an episode actually maybe in season 2, and that really was a lot of feedback on that episode. And it was really talking about the success of all was more important than the success of one. And so although you wanted to believe in the good of that person and their ability to get better, were you willing for it to cost the company and your ability to employ and feed the rest of the team? And when you kind of take that mindset, it becomes kind of a shift a little bit.
I mean, I am all for giving people chances within certain parameters. And I mean, Disney, when we were working at Disney, Disney's unionized heavily. Mickey is a Teamster, by the way, in case you didn't know that.
I didn't.
The easiest thing we could do as leaders was manage to the contract. Because if we did that, when it came time for discipline or termination, the unions had nothing to argue on because we followed the contract to the letter. So whether it was attendance or some kind of, dispute with how they were performing, as long as we followed the letter of the contract, when it came time to discipline, they couldn't say anything. And so, I mean, I don't have quite the contract in my business now, but, we do have an attendance policy and it's in black and white and we follow it. I was talking to one of my coaching members the other day, and she has a manager that works for her. And one of the customers, they run a school, and one of the customers was showing up late or not showing up for classes. And they have it in black and white. It says, look, if you don't show up or if you're late, it counts, as one of your classes, and you don't get to make it up. And the owner was like, oh, just, she's a good person. We'll let her slide. And the manager was like, well, why do we have a policy then? I look like an idiot because I told her no, So if you're going to have a policy, follow it. I mean, yes, you're the owner. You do what you want, but you're not helping anybody by doing that. You're actually incentivizing bad behavior, which isn't helping anybody. But yeah, when it comes to employees, you certainly, I mean, if you've got the policy, if you've got the standard, you've got to manage to that standard. And when you do, and when people know that is what you're doing, it becomes a really easy place to work.
Yes.
Because they know, it's not like wishy-washy, like, oh, well, Vance is working today, it's going to be easy, and Paul's working tomorrow, and well, you got to watch out for Paul. So
yes. Yeah. I think that's one of the hardest things for people who are emerging as leaders in your organization. And if we're kind of looking at growing a business, a lot of times the business owner is the, leader first. But then, you talk about that kind of manager who's now that middle management. One of the hardest things for that person as they're trying to come in and follow policy and hit your objectives. And when they have said, no, we got to follow we got to follow this policy, and then the business owner comes in over top and says, no, it's okay. You really cut the legs out from under them. And so, I was helping a client navigate a situation recently, and I said, and they wanted to walk something backwards. They were like, oh, maybe we were too hard on that policy. And it was, they hadn't foreseen some of these other circumstances. And I said, but you need to go back to that manager and coach them from the shadow in terms of how to walk. They are going to walk that back, because if you come in over top and walk that back for them, they are forever the bad guy and you are the good guy, and it will render them ineffective forever.
Yeah, I always reverse those roles. So when I was a leader and I had managers reporting to me, I was like, I always made them look like the good guys, and I was the bad man. I was the guy walking around with the big baseball bat, and they always looked like heroes. And then the roles were, the managers were trying to protect the employees from me. Now, I mean, I wasn't a jerk, but that was just the way it was, and it worked.
Yeah. So, you've got your coaching and consulting, and you've got these 3 other home service businesses. So, all 3, coaching and home service, any kind of service-based business, is obviously taking some of these other pieces and providing good customer experience to grow businesses. So what would you say some of the key pieces that have enabled you to do that successfully, leaning on some of your past knowledge and kind of the Disney experience?
Sure. Great question. I think a lot of, one of the first lessons I got at Disney was not customer service or experience, and it wasn't how to pick up trash before the trash hits the ground. Was that Disney runs on systems and processes, and they are simple systems and processes. Because if they were complex, the whole thing would fall apart. Because you got to look at who the majority of the employees are at one of those theme parks. They're all 17 and 18-year-old kids, and they got to push the button. And if they don't know how to push the button, things fall apart. So I've carried that with me. And systems give you freedom. It gives the owner freedom. So like I have systems in place right now in my home service businesses, allowed me to put a general manager in place, and I don't have to do anything with those businesses except cash checks and kiss babies. I spend about 90 minutes a week in those businesses, and I meet with the general manager for 30 minutes a week. That's it. Other than that, I just make sure the bank account is balanced and we're good to go. For employees, systems and processes also give them freedom. And this is where Disney shines, because if you can not just memorize, but do your job simply by muscle reflex, because you've always done it that way through rote. I mean, it just works that way. Now you have the freedom to do all of those nice things that Disney is known for. Make a napkin into a butterfly, or taking pictures for a family, or whatever it is, because you know your job so well in and out. You're not worried about, okay, did I do this? Did I do that? While you're taking a picture for a family. So that's what allows those extra wow moments, those extra moments of, oh my God, this is fantastic. Look at what these people did for me. Well, they did it because there's a process for their job. They know it really well, and it gives them freedom to be able to do what it is they're doing.
Right. I mean, that applies to so many things that it seems so intuitive, but at the same time, it's one of those things that it's almost so, it seems so simple when you say it that you're like, well, of course, but then it doesn't actually happen in application. So, when we're looking at systems and implementing, where do you find is the best place for someone to start that maybe thinks, I don't really have any systems or processes?
Pick one thing. So I'll give you my strategy. If you got nothing, starting from scratch, let me give you the impetus and the end game. Any business that has documented systems, when you go to sell, you are automatically anywhere between 1 and 1.5 multiple more valuable when you go to sell. So right there should be all the reason you need to document your systems. So the easiest way to do it is to map out your customer journey. So wherever you and the customer get together, map out the whole thing. So if the first point of contact is an ad or a postcard or a telephone call, okay, that's great. That's point number 1. And then what's point number 2? Okay, they come into the office. Great. What's point number 3? Oh, we visit their home for this. Great. And you just go through. And then you take one of those points and you prioritize it, and you say, okay, well, which one of these is going to get us the most bang for our buck? What's going to be either have the greatest impact on service? What's going to give us the greatest increase in revenue? Or maybe what's going to give us the most savings in either money or time? And then you attack those. And as you're doing this, you're documenting. And if you just do one a week, at the end of the year, you got 52 systems documented. And remember when I said Disney does it simply, and I do it, I follow the same thing. Disney runs on 3 words: what to do, how to do it, and why we do it that way. So, what to do? Answer the phone. How do you do it? Okay, thank you for calling the Grand Floridian, and we wish you a magical day, or whatever it is. Great. Why do we do it that way? Well, to make sure that the guests know that they've reached the right place and that we separate ourselves from all the other resorts on the property. I'm just pulling that one out from nowhere. But that's it. And it's that simple. And you just do one of those each week. You can record yourself. If you're a solopreneur, or if you're, a small business and the owner's still working in the business, get your phone app that does recordings. And while you're driving around, start recording stuff, but upload it to one of those AI things and have it transcribed, and you're done. Because when it comes to it with your policies and your standards, it helps you to also measure your employees, because you don't want to compare employee A to employee B. You want to compare the employee to your standard.
Right.
Because that's completely unfair to the employees, and it's not doing you any good either, because both employees might not be anywhere near your standard. So we want to make sure that you are ranking and evaluating your employees to the standards that you've set.
Yes. Now, I'd love to kind of walk through a situation with you and get some feedback. This is one that I run into with a lot of clients who are asking, where there's kind of this, they're implementing procedures and policies, they're realizing that we need to do it. And now they've started, but perhaps they're in that process. You're saying maybe one a week. So maybe they're kind of part of the way through the process. So some things are documented and some things are not. And you have always some employees who are going to follow things to the letter and some employees who are not. And so oftentimes what kind of people, business owners run into is where they have someone who seems like they're a great employee. They do that. They follow the policy to the letter, but when it comes to customer experience, that actually works to their default. So maybe that person is a frontline communications. Maybe they're getting incoming phone calls and they know that maybe customer Bob Smith there is very unhappy, but maybe it's a billing issue, but Bob keeps calling them and saying, hey, I haven't heard from anybody. And that person in that role keeps forwarding it over to the person who, based on the policy, should be dealing with that problem. But obviously Bob keeps calling. Bob has not been resolved. And that person in the end says, but I did I followed exactly what you said. But Bob is unhappy. So what would you say in a situation like that? How can you kind of blend the fact that customer experience, you've got policy and procedure and it is being followed, but then you've got a unhappy customer. So there's somewhere something's not right.
Well, the way I run my companies and the way my last few years at Disney, and I know it's this way with some of the big service powerhouses like Ritz-Carlton, Chick-fil-A, and a couple others, is if you encounter the problem, you are responsible to see that problem through to resolution. Not that you have to fix it, but you are responsible for making sure that it is resolved. So in the example that you provided, if Bob called back a second time and your CSR answers the phone and she should be saying, oh my God, you mean they didn't fix this yet? All right. I will make sure that we get so-and-so to call you back, resolve it, whatever. And then she needs to get up off of her derriere and go find whoever that person is that resolves this and say, hey, you, let's get this fixed because now it's on me and I need to report back to the customer that we're doing something. And then you have a log or, some kind of tracking, which you can either do in a CRM or, even have a little notebook if you don't have anything else. And she makes a note to follow up in a day or two. Did it get resolved? Yes or no? Call the customer back, said, hey, I just want to make sure that this was resolved satisfactorily for you. So, I get it with policies. Sometimes there are, yes, those people that will literally work to the letter of the contract. But if you put something in there that is, if you encounter an issue, if you encounter a problem, you kind of own the problem until it's fixed.
Yeah. And I think that just explains it so well in terms of kind of that ownership of, and I ran into this quite recently. We implemented a big system in one of our companies about 6 months ago. And about at the 6-month mark now that we have enough kind of historical data and enough volume that you start to see that some things that you implemented originally need a little, touch up and massaging. And so one of the things is there were certain tasks that, someone needed training on. So they would assign it to the manager or whoever was going to teach them. But in their mind, that task was now that person's, even though it was their client, their portfolio, their piece. And so things were getting missed because it was like, oh, well, but I assigned that to so-and-so. It's like, no, this is yours. And even if you don't know how to do something, that's okay. You can 100% ask the question. That person can walk you through it. But making sure that all happens before the 20th at 5 p.m. when that's due, that is, you own that deadline. Doesn't mean you have to know how to do it, but you have to make sure that you've tracked down the right people to make sure that it happens on time.
100%. Yeah, that's what accountability is all about.
It's that ownership of the concept piece. So we talked about system and process. What are the other pieces that really make the difference? Obviously Disney, we're saying they do lots of systems and process. They keep it on the simple side. And I think remembering who is operating those systems, such an important piece, so often it's this big, huge, elaborate thing, which may work for the engineer or the this or the that, but then the actual person who has to come in is like, I'm so lost, I'm very confused, and then it never happens. So what else? What are the other pieces that can really make a big difference?
Well, I think, certainly we go back to the being commoditized. Every business is. I mean, your business is commoditized. My business is commoditized. I don't know that any business that isn't. So we have to rise above it by providing the experiences. And the term that I call Disneyifying is creating experiences out of the mundane. So what are all the boring, mundane things we do in our business day in and day out to keep the business running? How do we plus that? How do we raise the level of service for that thing? Disney has figured that out. So I'll give you an example for my carpet cleaning business. So one of the boring, mundane things we have to do is get into somebody's home, right? So we have this completely scripted out and we follow up with it. It's in our OJT book. So it starts in the street. We park our van in the street. We don't park in the driveway because, God forbid, I got an oil leak. Now I got something else I got to clean up. The technician gets out of the van. He's in a clean uniform because he carries extra uniforms with him in case he gets dirty on the job beforehand. He smells good because he's not allowed to smoke on the job and he's not allowed to wear cologne because there's nothing worse than a technician walking around smelling like day-old Marlboros and he just took a shower in Axe. Some people like it. I mean, if you want to go to 7-Eleven and buy a bottle of it, knock your socks off, but that's not for my guys. So he gets a special mat and a little gift, and he goes up to the front door. He lays down his special mat. He knocks on the door. He doesn't ring the bell because friends knock, salespeople ring the bell. Takes a couple of steps back, waits for the customer to come to the door. Customer opens the door and he says, "Hi, my name's Josh. I'm here to create your healthy home. May I come in?" We don't just barge in. And a customer will invite us in. We do an exaggeration. So like we're performing a show, we exaggerate wiping our feet on the mat, put little booties on our shoes. And as we're going into the home, we present Mrs. McGillicuddy with a gift. Now, I don't know about you, but when was the last time you had a home service professional come to your house, a plumber, electrician, carpet cleaner, and give you a gift before any service was provided? Going to probably hazard a guess, never. So we give them a gift. It's not a very expensive gift. It's a nice little custom blue box, and in it is a bottle of our spot remover, a bag of cookies, and a little note from me saying, "Thanks so much for allowing us into your home." That is our scripted entry to get into the home. That is our experience. Now, notice that experience doesn't cost a lot of money. I mean, that gift is under $5. Everything else is just cost of doing business, and I would have to do it anyway. But that gift, the cost of the gift is more than compensated because giving that gift starts a process called reciprocity. So if I give something to you, you feel compelled to give something back to me. So when we started giving this gift, we saw a 26% increase in our mid-tier package, which equated to about $65,000 in additional sales every year. So a little $5 box generating additional sales like that. I'm like, oh my goodness, this is great. So you just have to think, okay, well, what are some of the stereotypes of your business? And how do you break them? How do you completely go opposite of what everybody else is doing and do that? So that's one of the ways. But just look for those boring, mundane things. Answering the telephone is. I'll tell you how to separate yourself from everybody else in the world. Answer your phone live. Seriously. Answer your phone live. You will be heads and tails above everybody else in the world because everybody has abdicated phone answering to some kind of app or service or something, and you can't get a live person. It's crazy.
I think for that one specifically, anytime you're dealing with incoming people, whether that is the chatbot on your website, the phone, a quote request form or whatever, that is someone, people are always like, oh, we need a new campaign. We need to do this. But this is someone who's already, they're reaching out to you. They're way warmer than any random stranger cruising their Facebook feed. And there's so much thought and care that goes into things like an ad campaign and this specific metric and this and that. People they study this. But the fact that the person who actually already is ready, credit card in hand, to book you is on the phone, and it's like, the afterthought ultimately. is just such a key piece. And oftentimes, if we go back to that kind of, business owner, whoever's in the business, maybe they're, they are the person who's still on site cleaning the carpets themselves. Now they're with the customer, phones in the pocket ringing, and they don't, but maybe they're dealing with Mrs. Smith already. I feel like that is the missed piece so often, where, you can get someone to answer the phone. It's not expensive, and so you can have someone answer the phone, and maybe they just they've got their script, they answer the phone, they give that good experience, and they say someone will call you, someone will call you back within the hour. That person who is ready to purchase is still handled. They're still getting a positive experience.
I mean, I'm a partner in a call center, and when we were doing our research, we called 4,000 home service businesses in the U.S. And we got the phone numbers from Google pay-per-click. So people were paying to have their phone number advertised. 17% answered live. So there's how many thousands?
That's one of those shocking but not surprising, where you're like, the number is shocking, but at the same time, you're like, but then you think to any time you've called a business in the last 6 months, and you're like, it's not surprising though.
No, not at all. But you're wasting money. I mean, as this money flush down the toilet, because we're just going to go down to the next number. We're not going to leave a message. If we do leave a message, we're still going to go down to the next number because we want what we want right now. And that's how all consumers are. So you've got to be able to satisfy that need. And people think that they can't afford this. And going to your point a couple of minutes ago, is you can't afford to not answer the phone. If you were to, like I said, I'm part of a call center. And I mean, even our largest package for like a busy home service business is only $1,500 a month. And if your job average is, I don't know, $400, I mean, all you got to do is get 4 jobs that you easily would have missed because the phone's in your pocket and the service is paid for. And easily people are missing 4 calls a month, especially if they're, solo. So yeah, that telephone is just, I mean, as much as it's still, as you do texting and videos and all the other stuff on your phone, it's still the lifeline to your business.
Especially if, and someone I was talking to recently, they were talking about, Instagram marketing versus Google marketing, and with all of these changes and how, and so we were kind of talking about it. And I said, I can tell you with certainty, if you have water pouring out of your ceiling, the last thing you're doing is scrolling Instagram, trying to find someone who's going to help you that has the prettiest graphic. This is not, now if you're a photographer and you're going to be showing your portfolio, then maybe that's a better, there's a good place for that. But again, if you're looking for something specific, especially if it has urgency, you have a rat running across your floor, you have water pouring out of your ceiling, like, people, we need help now.
Yeah, definitely. And it goes back to also, so I started my cleaning business 17 years ago. And like I said, I still own it. I had a friend of mine who's not too far from me start at the same time. And I have always been, again, going through the experience, small businesses need to let their personality of the owner shine through. They can't be viewed as a company. They have to be viewed as a person who's serving the community. And so, I mean, I shamelessly use my children in my marketing. I constantly make fun of myself, deprecating humor all the time, any chance I get. And people enjoy it because it's entertaining. But my buddy tried to make himself look like this big company. And he got one of those phone tree things. And right when he opened, it was press 1 for commercial, press 2 for residential, press 3 for janitorial, press 4 for something else, and press 5. All of those options went right to his cell phone. He was the only employee, and all those options went right to his cell phone. I'm like, you're a freaking idiot. What are you doing? Just answer the phone. Nobody wants all that.
So funny. I think, though, that sometimes we feel like we, and perhaps in that situation, and I'm curious how you deal with this, people will start something and maybe they're not finished something else. So maybe they're still working, but they've decided they're going to start their own business. And so they decide that they can't be the face. or perhaps, they are, want to try and dip their toes in the water, but they don't want anyone to really know. Maybe they say, hey, I want to start a cleaning company, but my family thinks I'm taking on too much anyway, and I don't want to do that. And so, one of the questions years ago, a client asked me, they wanted to do this big store, this online store, and she was kind of shy. And I said, I really think the only way you'll make this successful is if you're willing to be the face publicly. And if you're going to be on your social media and you're going to be sharing, because people buy from people. And so you can buy that specific item just about anywhere. And I said, but people really like you. So if you're willing to get over being shy and show up, and, if you want to sell all over the place, then you need to get on like short form clips and be sharing who you are and why this is cool. And she was like, oh, yeah. But, a year in, she was still, and she's like, the marketing's not working. And I said, because you're missing you. You really are.
It is. I've got a client who's a manufacturer of luxury shampoo, and it's a hair regrowth shampoo, and his target market is postmenopausal women and post radiation and cancer treatment, because I guess that when the women lose their hair. And he used to be a hairdresser to the stars. So movie stars would fly him out to sets and things, and he would do their hair and come back. And you look at his website right now, and his face is like really hard to find. And I'm like, dude, you need to get your face out there. People, you are a celebrity in your own world. Play with that. You need to get that out there. So I 100% agree with you.
So when you have a portfolio of businesses, are you the face of all of your businesses, or is that something where now you have a general manager and maybe they're taking on that role? Or how do you do that once you start to kind of go in the business group collection?
Yep. So it took a while for the transition. So yes. So Stephen, who's the general manager for my home service businesses, it took a good solid 2 years to transition. People would call up, I want Vance to come clean. And well, Vance doesn't clean anymore, And so, yeah, it took some time to really separate myself from that. But now people, Stephen's got kids. They got little kids. So they're eating up his little baby stories and all that kind of stuff. But, my coaching business, I am the face. I'm it. Oh, if I stop, the business goes away because I'm it. And I'm okay with that because there's really nobody I could sell this to. The home service business, certainly. I could sell that to anybody. Yeah, I think that, bricks and mortar stuff that doesn't require the personality behind it to make the business go. Yeah. Those certainly you can transition to somebody else. It take a little time, but you can certainly do that. Stuff like I do with this. Now, as soon as I'm done, I'll just turn the lights off and walk out the door.
There you go. So one tangible tip that someone can implement in their business tomorrow that can really make that difference.
Well, aside from answering the phone live, because I think we beat that one to death, I would say I don't have many mantras. Actually, I only have one mantra, and that is you won't profit unless you implement. So I would say take one thing you heard today, whether it be on this podcast or somewhere else, take one thing and implement it tomorrow. Pick one.
I love that.
One, and get the results from it. Something you read in a newspaper, if you still read a newspaper. I do. But just pick one thing you learned and just commit to implementing that one thing. See the results and pat yourself on the back that said you did it, and then go do something else.
I love that. Fantastic advice that applies to absolutely every single person listening. So Vance, where can people follow you, get your content? Where do you hang out online?
Sure. Best place is my website, which is deliverservicenow.com. All sorts of free downloads and things there. I just put out a new, I call them hot sheets. So it's 52 ways to wow your customers without breaking the bank. So it's all free and really low cost ways to wow. So you got one wow for every week of the year. And then if you want to follow me, I'm really only on LinkedIn. Flakebook is not my place, but so I'm on LinkedIn. I think I'm the only Vance Morris on LinkedIn as well. So either the website or LinkedIn.
Well, thank you so much for being here. I think this episode just gives so much value that is 100% implementable in every single business out there.
Tiffany-Ann, thank you so much for having me on. I appreciate it.
Don't forget to click subscribe, comment below, and share the episode with a fellow entrepreneur. If you want to take us on the road, we are available everywhere you listen to podcasts. Thanks so much. See you next time.